The words echoed through the store like a gunshot. The woman just smiled, reached calmly into her purse, and what she pulled out made the whole room fall silent. She walked into the department store like any other woman would, head high. Steps! Sure, expression calm, but focused. The store was glowing with early summer sunlight, the kind that made glass glisten and white tiles sparkle underfoot. Her heels tapped the polished marble floor with quiet authority, each step confident but not loud. She didn't just walk, in she arrived. Amara Cole was used to being watched, not because of fame, but because of presence. Tall, graceful, with skin the deep shade of polished mahogany and eyes like warm charcoal, Amara carried herself like someone who'd had to fight her way through doors others had been born standing inside. Her black fitted blazer hugged her shoulders perfectly. Crisped white blouse buttoned neat at the collar, and her tailored slacks framed her poised stance like a frame around a painting. She wore no flashy jewelry, just a silver watch and subtle pearl studs in her ears. Her purse, black leather with fine gold trim, hung lightly from her shoulder. She wasn't here to shop. Not exactly, not today. This was supposed to be quick. She needed a formal clutch bag for a retirement gala happening that evening. Director Ramirez was stepping down. The event was crawling with agency brass. Normally, Amara hated appearances, but this one was non-negotiable. She could have sent an assistant. But there were days like today when she needed the grounding of normalcy. To do something ordinary, human, civilian, she passed through the perfume section, ignoring the cloud of synthetic florals and the forced smiles of the saleswomen. They were always nice until they weren't. She'd learned the pattern long ago. Warm greeting, brief curiosity, suspicion, surveillance. She felt the eyes even now. A young employee behind the cologne counter whispered into her headset as Amara passed. Her fingers tensed slightly around her purse strap, but her face remained unreadable. On the third floor, tucked beside a glass balcony, stood the high-end handbag display. White lights made the shelves glow like a museum exhibit. Gucci, Prada, Saint Laurent. One particular EV Saint Laurent clutch, small, rectangular, black with a soft gold chain and subtle YSL logo, caught her eye. She picked it up, turned it slowly in her hand, light, balanced, elegant. She imagined it with her charcoal evening dress, professional, quiet wealth, perfect. Hey! A voice snapped behind her. Amara turned slowly, coolly. The man was in his late 40s, medium height, ruddy pale skin, a beer belly pushing his navy blue polo shirt forward like a balloon trapped beneath fabric, beige khaki pants, scuffed tan, loafers, sunglasses rested on his head despite being indoors. His hair was thinning, light brown, combed awkwardly to hide the loss, and sweat darkened his underarms. His eyes blue and bloodshot locked on her with sharp judgment. You gonna pay for that? Or are you planning to slide it into that big all bag of yours when no one's looking? The words weren't loud, but they carried, echoed, stung it. Was the tone, the certainty, not curious, not cautious, accusatory? Amara blinked once, and again, slowly. The clutch still rested lightly in her hand. People nearby turned their heads. A young white couple paused near the Louis Vuitton section. A teenage employee froze mid-rearrangement of a coat shelf. Even a security guard near the elevator bank looked up. The man stepped closer, squaring his shoulders like a high school bully who thought he'd just found a weaker kid to corner. I've seen people like you before, continued voice. Rising with every word, dressed nice, pretending you belong here. And then something ends up missing. Amara said nothing. She studied him not angrily, but clinically. His posture, his flush, his trembling jaw, the fear in his aggression, the weakness behind his puffed chest. She knew this man, not personally, but intimately. He was a type. The type who mistook skin tone for threat, volume for power,
entitlement for rightness.
A manager rushed in. A woman in her 30s, hair pinned tightly. Name tag. Reading Carla. She approached with a smile that was clearly plastic and trembling beneath the surface. "Sir, is everything all right?" "This woman," the man said, pointing with a shaking finger, "was trying to walk out with that clutch." Amara raised one brow. She hadn't even moved. "I saw her," he insisted. She picked it up and looked around like she was waiting for a chance. Carla's eyes darted between them. "Ma'am," she began, turning to Amara. "If I could just check your—" "No," Amara said. Absolute. Carla froze. Even the man blinked. The security guard started walking toward them now, hand-brushing his belt radio. "Ma'am, we just need to be sure I don't have to let you check anything," Amara said, voice low and steady. "I haven't moved. I haven't hidden anything. I picked up an item for purchase." "You were watching. So was he." Her tone was sharp as glass, professional, powerful, precise. She'd used it in interrogations, in courtrooms, and in meetings with men far more dangerous than this polo shirt-wearing crusader. The man scoffed, growing louder again. "This is ridiculous. She's obviously trying to steal. Just look at her." That was it. Those 3 words. Just look. At her, everything fell silent after that. Even Carla stopped breathing. The shoppers watching stepped back like an invisible bomb had been armed. Amara tilted her head. Then, slowly, without urgency or panic, she reached into her black purse. No one spoke. Even the man's mouth froze mid-drant. Around something solid, cool metal, worn leather, she pulled it out and flipped it open in one motion. The badge golden, gleaming, FBI. Her photo. Her name. Special Agent Amara Coldot. No, one breathed. The security guard took a step back. The man's face drained white. Carla's jaw went slack. Amara took one step forward, holding the badge just inches from the man's stunned face. "Next time," she said, her voice still smooth but edged with ice, "think twice before profiling a federal agent." There was a particular silence that followed moments of exposed truth, like the vacuum that sits right before a thunderclap. Not anger, not fear. Something else. Something Roger Grant couldn't name because he'd never experienced it. Accountability. The kind that hangs in the air, heavy and visible. Amara Cole finally placed the YSL clutch back on the glass shelf with precise care. She took a step toward the counter, no rush in her movement. Every inch of her posture screamed calm, power, not the kind that needed to shout. It's a kind that had nothing left to prove. "Carla," she said evenly to the manager, "do you know the penalty for falsely detaining a federal agent under racial pretense?" The store manager fumbled over her own words. I didn't detain, I just thought, with the situation with him, you mean?" Mara nodded toward Roger without looking at him. "The man who screamed theft based on nothing but the color of my skin and the weight of his entitlement." Carla swallowed hard. I'm very sorry. Truly, we had no idea. Could it have an idea," Amara said, now turning her full gaze on her.
Act.
"You just acted on the wrong one."
Act.
Roger's breathing grew louder. The security guard looked pale. "I need names," Amara said. "Here's his. That employee in cosmetics who started whispering the second I walked by." That was the terrifying part. Carla looked at Roger like he might save her, but the man was shrinking fast. He turned and walked briskly toward the escalators, ignoring the whispers now rising behind him. "Oh no," Amara called after him. "You don't get to run now." He froze. "You started this," she said, walking after him slowly, heels clicking with slow, precise grace. "You dragged my name through mud, loud and proud, in public. You'll stay here until I decide what to do about it." He turned, red-faced. "What do you want from me?" Amara paused in front of him, badge still in hand. "Nothing." A beat. "Not yet." The lights above her flickered as the gunshots echoed through the alleyway. Amara, then only 17, crouched behind a rusted dumpster, hands shaking, heart pounding, like it wanted to claw through her chest. That night had changed everything. She had always known the world was cruel, but that was the first time it had tried to kill her. An innocent mistake, cutting through a back alley behind her part-time job, had placed her in the middle of a gang shootout. She wasn't the target, but bullets didn't discriminate, and when the sirens came and the cops screamed at her to get down like she was the one holding the gun, she learned a second lesson. You didn't have to be guilty to be treated like a criminal. She spent the night handcuffed in the back of a squad car. Bloody knees, shaking lips, a manager had to vouch for her the next morning. The trauma stayed, but so did the anger. That night, she made a decision. One that would guide her entire life. She wouldn't run from power. She would become it. Roger now sat in a leather chair near the store's concierge counter, shoulders hunched forward, lips drawn tight. He looked smaller than before, less certain. He tapped his fingers nervously against the wood trim, the man who had roared reduced to a muttering mess. I didn't mean to accuse you personally, he mumbled. You pointed at me, Amara replied. You yelled. You claimed you saw me stealing. I was just trying to help the store. No, she said sharply. You were trying to protect a space you thought didn't belong to someone like me, the store's assistant manager. Had now arrived a young man named Omar, with wide eyes and a sweat-drenched collar. He kept wringing his hands and nodding apologetically every 5 seconds. Agent Cole, I assure you this is not the standard of behavior we accept in our store. Please accept our apology, and perhaps a gift voucher. Amara stared at him like he'd just offered her a plastic cup after throwing boiling water at her. This isn't about a bag, she said coldly. It's about what you all saw when I walked in. It wasn't a customer. It wasn't a woman. It was a threat. Omar said nothing. Cole, you're a hammer, said Assistant Director Langley, tapping his desk. And the Bureau has a habit of turning hammers toward the wrong nails? Amara leaned back in the stiff leather chair, her jaw tight. She hated these conversations, the kind where her brilliance was praised but her sharpness was warned about. Like a loaded gun? I don't use my badge unless I need to, she replied. But I won't be disrespected in silence. You're not on assignment right now, Langley added. I don't want to have to read about you in a headline over some coffee shop dispute. She smiled. Then maybe the world should. Stop trying me, Langley chuckled under his breath. Fair enough. Roger now stood again, trying to act composed. What do you want from me? He asked again, more defensive this time. I want you to remember this, Amara said quietly. Every time you feel that itch to speak before you think, every time you look at someone and judge them based on skin or style or silence, he scoffed. So now you're lecturing me? No, she said, turning away. I'm sparing you. She began walking toward the exit. Roger stood dumbfounded. That's it? You're not going to arrest me? She paused, then turned slightly over her shoulder. You're not worth the paperwork. With that, she exited the store, sunlight catching the badge still in her hand. The sliding doors whispered open and closed behind her. But the story wasn't over. Not even close, because someone had filmed everything, and by sundown, the world would know exactly who Agent Amara Cole was. The video went viral in exactly 43 minutes, posted by a teenager near the purse section. It started with a shaky zoom on a red-faced man pointing and yelling, I saw her. She was about to steal it. Then the camera panned slowly, perfectly to the calm black woman standing tall and still. Her hand dipped into her purse with surgical grace. And then flash. FBI badge. Silence. The video cut off at her words. Next time. Think twice before profiling a federal agent. The internet did the rest. Within an hour, it was on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. By noon, national news outlets were requesting interviews. By sundown, Amara Cole was trending in 5 countries. The hashtag Agent Cole had over 1 million uses. Meanwhile, Amara sat at her kitchen counter, sipping tea like it was just another Tuesday. Her apartment was quiet, minimalist, dormed, sun streaming in across the hardwood floor. She wore a loose gray sweatshirt now, curls tied up. Phone screen buzzing on the marble counter every 10 seconds. Voicemail mentions. Mins. Some hateful. Most amazed she didn't respond to any of them. She was used to noise. She scrolled instead. Through the headlines, FBI agent silences racist accusation in luxury store. CNN hero or threat. Black woman shuts down profiling with Power Daily News. A department store under fire for racial bias incident. The hill there was one clip that made her pause. A college student had broken down the incident frame by frame, calling it a masterclass in silent dominance. "Look at the way she doesn't flinch," the student said. "She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't explain herself. That's not weakness. That's control." Amara smiled faintly. Not pride, just recognition. The obstacle course was soaked in late autumn rain. Her boots squished in the mud, breath ragged, but steady. A male Trainetherbild buzzcut taunted her as they neared the wall climb. "You sure you're built for this, princess?" She didn't answer. She just climbed. He slipped on the second grip. She didn't. By the end of the course, she was 3 minutes ahead. The instructors said nothing, but their eyes followed her longer than the others. Later that night, one of the senior field trainers, a tall, severe woman named Agent Rosa, sat with her during dinner. "You don't have to beat them to be great," Rosa said. "I'm not here to be great," Amara replied. "I'm here to be better than every man who's ever doubted me." Rosa blinked, then nodded slowly. "You just might pull that off." Director Evelyn Thorne dropped her reading glasses on the desk inside. The headlines were still open. On her screen, Agent Cole's face was now as recognizable as a pop star. Thorne had always respected Amara's work, her numbers, her case resolutions, her cold composure. But this moment had lit a match in a country that always sat near the edge of fire. "Should we release a statement?" her deputy asked. Thorne shook her head. "She did nothing wrong," she said, "and she didn't do it for attention. Let the storm pass." She earned the right to silence. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling. When a black woman made a statement with nothing but her presence, the world split into two camps: those who were threatened by it, those who needed it. Roger Grant hadn't left his home in 2 days. He didn't check his phone anymore. Every time he opened social media, the comments were waiting. "This you?" Imagine yelling at an FBI agent. Embarrassing. Classic Karen energy, but with loafers. Someone even found his LinkedIn. His office voicemail was full of reporters. His world, once perfectly protected in its middle class, insulation had shattered, and for the first time, Roger had to sit with something no one had ever forced on him. For reflection, he had been wrong, and the world saw it. Amara sat near the window, laptop open, the familiar hum of espresso machines, and conversations swirling around her. She was working on an old cold case file, but her thoughts kept drifting back to the store. Not the moment itself, but what followed. Not the fame, the responsibility. She had spent a lifetime blending in when needed. But now she had become something more: symbol, an example, a conversation starter. And that, she knew, was more dangerous than any badge. It started with a call from 60 Minutes, then CNN, then a producer from the Oprah. Conversation. Each message more polite, more urgent, more eager to have a courageous, composed, and timely voice featured in their next segment. They called her a hero, a modern Rosa Parks in heels, a symbol of elegance under pressure. Amara Cole ignored all of them. She wasn't looking to be a symbol. She was just doing what she always did: survive, stand, and serve. But the world wouldn't let go. By the end of the week, her office mailbox had over 200 messages, some invitations, some threats, most curiosity. "Agent Cole, we have a situation," Director Thorne said, not looking up from the file she held. Amara stood across from her, back straight, hands folded. "There's been an incident in Atlanta. An undercover bureau, asset blackmail, 28 was detained by local police. No warrant, no probable cause. Guns drawn. They put a knee on his neck before his badge fell out." Amara said nothing. She'd heard stories like this before. Only this time, it was one of theirs. "He's in the hospital," Thorne added. "The local police department has gone radio silent. But someone leaked body cam footage." Amara raised her eyes. "And let me guess," she said. "You want me to go clean it up?" "No," Thorne said. "I want you to expose it. From the inside." Detroit, her hands were sweating inside her gloves as she crouched behind a rusted dumpster again. Different city, different reason. The nerves still felt the same. It was her first time tailing a white collar. Fraud suspect linked to an arms laundering network. Nothing loud, nothing flashy, just eyes and patience. Her male partner at the time agent, Royce, kept doubting her. "Moves, you sure you got him?" he whispered. Yes. "You've only been on him for 10 minutes. I've been on him for 10 blocks. Later that night, they arrested the suspect at a parking garage, thanks to her lead. Royce didn't apologize. He never would. But he also never questioned her again. The air was heavy with southern summer heat, humid, dense, oppressive in more ways than temperature. Amara stepped out of the Bureau's black SUV and looked up at the Atlanta Police Headquarters. The glass entrance reflected blue sky, but the mood beneath it was anything but calm. Inside, tensions crackled like static. Deputy Chief Ramirez met her in the conference room, mid-50s. Latino, nervous sweat already visible on his brow. "We had no idea he was FBI," he said defensively. "You had no idea because you didn't check," Amara replied. "Saw a young black man in a hoodie near a Mercedes. That was enough. Fit a description. Stop." Her voice cut through the room like a blade. She opened her case folder and pulled out a still from the leaked body cam. The agent's ID crushed under a boot, blood on his temple. "This is your description." Ramirez lowered his gaze. Outside the building, protesters had begun to gather. Hashtag Justice for Agent Thompson signs waved in the heat. FBI or not, he's still black. The line hit hard. Amara stood behind tinted glass, watching the crowd. Some recognized her. A few lifted their phones. She was becoming a face again, but the deeper problem stayed buried. This wasn't about one mistake. It was about the system that trained people to make it over and over. And now, they had asked her to investigate it. Roger had started therapy. He wouldn't admit it to anyone, but the panic attacks had become too frequent. Crowded places made him sweat. Loud voices made him flinch. He kept replaying that moment in the store. Not the badge, no. Not even that. What haunted him was her eyes. How calm she looked. How certain. How utterly unimpressed by him. He was no longer afraid of her. He was afraid of what she represented. A future where men like him were no longer in control. Amara stood over a whiteboard now covered in sticky notes, red markers, and timestamps. The incident wasn't isolated. She had uncovered 5 more cases involving wrongful stops of black agents across 3 states in the last 6 months. A pattern, a virus inside their own system. She picked up the pen, drew a circle. Justice isn't just prosecution, she whispered to herself. It's prevention. Amara Cole's eyes scanned the room-bright LED lights overhead. Glass walls, clean lines, but not a single ounce of warmth. The Bureau's internal ethics board chamber was designed to make people feel exposed. Good, she had nothing to hide. On the table in front of her, sat for sealed. Reports each detailing confirmed cases where black federal agents were profiled. Ignored or endangered by local law enforcement despite clear identification. She didn't sit yet. She wanted them to look at her while she stood, dull, sharp, undeniable. Director Thorne had warned her this day would come, and it had. Agent Cole. Began board member Hastings, a silver-haired traditionalist with an Ivy League tie, and a voice soaked in privilege. "Why do you believe your assignment needed to expand beyond the Atlanta incident?" She didn't blink, because I found a pattern, and patterns mean rot. Another member leaned forward, and Agent Mendez, more progressive, but cautious. "And you think this rot extends into bureau ranks?" Amara placed a second file on the table, internal communication logs, showing passive interference, case rerouting, and subtle stonewalling whenever racial bias inquiries were initiated. "Not all rot makes noise," she said calmly. "Some just blocks sunlight." She was 27, fresh out of law school. Sitting across from 2 stiff recruiters at the DC office, "Your GPA is outstanding," one said, "and your language skills. Impressive. But why the Bureau?" Mara had looked them straight in the eye. "Because the law is too quiet." "Want to work where silence isn't enough?" One recruiter smirked, the other wrote something down. She never found out what it said, but she got the badge. late night. Quiet footsteps. The dim underglow of amber lights buzzing. Above parked cars, Amara stood beside her bureau-issued black sedan. Waiting. A car pulled in. Out stepped Agent Reese Monroe, early 50s, southern accent, black suit, cold stare. I'd once mentored her. Now, he was avoiding her. You're stirring up ghosts that make the bureau look bad. He said, I'm exposing ghosts that never left. Reese leaned closer. You want to do good work? Keep it in the field. Not on the front page. Amara's face didn't move. I didn't go viral. The truth did. A girl on a bike pedaled fast down the sidewalk, 10 years old, brown skin, afro puff bouncing. She stopped suddenly when she saw the TV through a shop window. There she was, Agent Amara Cole, standing tall behind a podium. The girl smiled like she'd seen a superhero. Behind her, a mural of Harriet Tubman towered over the block. Amara opened her encrypted tablet. A secure message flashed. You've made someone powerful nervous. Watch your back. Unknown, she didn't flinch. She expected it. This wasn't about one badge, one store, or one man yelling thief. This was about the systems that trained people to fear what they didn't understand. She sipped her black coffee, put her weapon in its holster, and stepped into the elevator. It was going to be a long day. Amara's inbox pinged at exactly 5:04. A .m. subject? They buried it. Sender, KIT 27, former Unit 9, no greeting, no signature. Just a zip file containing over 40 redacted documents, field reports, and private interdepartmental emails. She opened the first one. Agent Jason L. Thompson flagged 3 instances of racial profiling in 2022. Recommend no action. Agent labeled overly sensitive to social climate. Another one. Surveillance footage confirms. Officer Kent failed to identify Agent Thompson's credentials at traffic stop. Internal review suggests training lapse. Recommend warning only. Another. Amara Cole, noted for aggressive pursuit of bias cases. Consider reassignment or psychological fitness review. Amara stared at the screen. The cover-up wasn't subtle. It was written into policy. This wasn't incompetence. It was strategy. She closed the laptop, picked up her secure line. Director Thorne, we have a problem. Across town, Roger Grant's HUS. Roger had barely slept. His name was trending again. Only this time, not for something he did, but for what people were saying about him. Roger Grant, the face of everyday racism. The man who sparked a national reckoning, hashtag not just Roger. What would you have done? He read each comment like a dagger. At first he told himself he was misunderstood. Then came the video breakdowns. The body language experts, the psychologists, dissecting his tone, his posture, the look on his face. When he said, I saw you steal, they weren't just calling him racist. They were calling him irrelevant. He was 8 years old. His father had just taken him to the hardware store. At checkout, a black teenager walked in with muddy boots. Roger clutched his dad's leg. His dad whispered, watch your pockets. Nod. Roger remembered the feeling of good. Boys versus threats. That moment never left him now. It was coming back to haunt him. The knock came at midnight. A woman in a trench coat. Salt and pepper afro. Sharp eyes. Call me Juno, she said. I used to be you. Amara stepped aside. Let her in. Juno dropped a flash drive on the table. 4 years ago, I started digging too deep. I uncovered a hidden database one where flagged agents were quietly redirected, stalled, or scrubbed from promotions. Not fired, not reprimanded, just forgotten. Amara's blood went cold. They call it the garden, Juno continued. You're in it now. We have with us legal analyst Rashida Kane and retired FBI chief Marcus Lowell, said the anchor. Let's talk about Agent Cole. She's becoming a national figure. Whistleblower or liability? Kane, she's a patriot. She's shining a light on an internal rot. Lowell, she's dangerous. The Bureau works because of silence and unity. The camera cut to black and white footage of Amara walking out of the store with Roger yelling behind her. Narration, that moment may go down in history as the spark that cracked open federal denial. Behind a reinforced door, A meeting was taking place. A man in a $4,000 suit reviewed a personnel file. She's building momentum. Press. Whistleblowers. Protesters. We underestimated her. A second voice. You want us to pull her case files? No, that'll make her a martyr. We need her to crack under pressure. Discredit herself. Third voice. What if she doesn't? A long silence. Then we let the garden bloom. House was quiet. Too quiet. Amara's instincts lit up the second she turned the key in the door. The air smelled ... Wrong. No broken windows. No triggered alarm. But the silence. Loud. She stepped in cautiously, gun drawn low, sweeping each corner with trained precision. Then she saw at her locked home filing drawer, opened without force. No pry marks, no scratches, just open. That meant bureau-level access. Someone with a badge had come here and they hadn't taken anything. They'd read everything. Roger leaned forward into the mic. The host, an unapologetically bold black woman named Tanya Rivers, didn't waste time. So, Mr. Grant, you saw a black woman, assumed she was a thief, and now you're here because the internet won't forget. Roger cleared his throat, made a mistake. No, you assumed, sir. Be honest. Yes, I assumed, and I was wrong. But people don't know how scared I was. I thought you thought what? That her skin carried crime. Silence. The radio booth went so still, even the soundboard stopped blinking. Roger exhaled. I think I was taught something ugly a long time ago. I let it win that day. Tanya didn't respond right away. Then she leaned in. Do you believe you're the only one who was taught that? Roger whispered. No. That afternoon, The Intercept published a bombshell article. Inside the garden, the FBI's quiet. Blacklist featuring 87 pages of internal memos, agent tracking, personality flagging, and long-term removal protocols for whistleblowers and racial bias reporters. Agent Amara Cole's name was on the first page. So was Agent Juno's, who had disappeared from public view 2 years earlier. One memo read, Agent AC displays. Patterned racial overcorrection. Recommended, assign to media-invisible roles or relocate to low-profile field offices. Clips of Amara facing down the store, accuser resurfaced. New clips showed her in courtrooms, briefings, and congressional hearings. A hashtag emerged. Hashtag let her lead even people. Outside the country began using her name as a rally cry for justice within systems they didn't trust. Buried on page 76 of the leaked documents was a single red highlighted name, Thorne. Director Malcolm Amara's current boss, flagged, not for misconduct, for complicity. She stared at the line. Director Thorne aware of Garden. Protocols since 2015 provided tactical support under code clearance red. She walked in, full badge, full armor, slapped the report down in front of him. You knew. Thorne didn't deny it. I thought I could dismantle it from the inside. But the rot was deeper than I expected. I tried to protect you. She shook. Her head no. You tried to silence the problem by isolating the truth. He looked old, tired. You're not ready to make enemies that deep, Amara. She leaned in. They started this war. I'm just turning on the lights, inside a secure bunker. A man with a silver ring turned to the screen. Phase 3 has begun. Behind him, multiple agents typed rapidly. Background checks. Movement logs. Surveillance drones launched, and Amara's face flickered across their screens. Boxed in red, the file sat in her inbox like a ticking bomb. Encrypted folder. Obsidian no. Sender no return address. Just one line. You're not looking high enough. Amara plugged in her personal decryption key. A single video loaded grainy, time-stamped, but unmistakable. 3 senior bureau officials in a closed-door meeting. One leaned forward and whispered, The garden isn't about discipline. It's about control. Predict and purge. Another added, We can't let black leadership destabilize bureau narrative. It's containment, not racism. It's preservation. Amara paused the video. She felt sick. This wasn't just corruption. This was ideological warfare. His doorbell rang. A lawyer from a private PR firm stood tall, flanked by a stern man in a military haircut. "We can rehabilitate your image, but you'll need to do exactly as we say," Roger frowned. "Why, help me." The man responded flatly, "Because this isn't about you anymore. It's about controlling the reaction." "What do you mean?" "If she wins, others will follow. You're now a symbol, and symbols can be repurposed." They handed him a contract. "Sign, and you'll be the voice of accountable white America. Refuse, and you disappear into silence." Roger stared at the pen. It felt heavier than it should have. A crowd of thousands stood waiting, not just activists, judges, teachers, former FBI analysts, whistleblowers. Amara stepped up to the podium. Holding nothing but a flash drive, she raised it slowly. "This contains the names of over 200 agents flagged. Punished or erased not for failure, but for trying to stop it." The crowd stirred. She continued, "This is not just about me. It's about systems that call for silence in the name of order. Systems that fear the mirror." Click. She plugged the drive into the media rig. Behind her, on a massive screen, names began to scroll. The garden was no longer a secret, Director. Thorne stood with 2 internal affairs chiefs. She made it public. "It's gone global," one muttered. "Shut her down." Another added, "Discredit. Leak sealed files. Dig up anything." Thorne looked away. "She has nothing to hide. You sure about that?" They dropped a file on the table. Mara. Cole. Incident. Lagos, Nigeria. Year 2019. Thorne's hand froze midair. Amara ran a covert op, chasing a smuggling ring feeding corrupt law. Enforcement in the U.S., she made the right call. But 2 civilians died because of delayed backup. The Bureau buried it now. They'd unbury it. FBI hero? Oh, our global liability. Leaked documents suggest Amara Cole covered up 2019 incident abroad. The smear had begun. Social feeds flooded with hashtag double agent and hashtag not so heroic. Amara stared at the screen. This is how they fight. Juno patched into Amara's coms. "There. Going to twist the Lagos op? Say you violated protocol?" "I did what I had to, I know. But this fight isn't about truth anymore. It's about who owns the narrative." His name was mentioned again. Roger Grant. Accidental spark. Of America's newest reckoning, he clicked off the TV, looked at the contract, then he burned it. He wasn't sure if he deserved redemption, but he knew he couldn't sell his silence anymore. "Agent Cole," the journalist said, "some say you've betrayed your oath." "Country," Amara looked into the camera. "My oath was to justice, not to shadows wearing badges." The chamber was packed, not just with senators and aides, but with tension. Agent Amara Cole sat alone at the center of a curved wood desk. Her FBI badge rested beside her, glinting under the hearing room's lights. Flashing cameras. Dozens of microphones, her nameplate read, "Cole, a special agent." Federal Bureau of Investigation across from her sat 6 senators, each holding folders thick with files, many of them marked with redacted lines and post-its labeled Obsidian or Cole. Counter-narrative. Senator Langley of Ohio, a polished white man with a perfect gray part and a lawyer's cold smile, leaned into his mic. "Agent Cole, for the record, do you acknowledge leaking classified FBI materials?" Amara stared back calmly. "No. I disclosed information necessary to protect the constitutional rights of American citizens." "Protected whistleblowing?" Langley sneered. "You exposed internal documents related to national security?" Amara lifted her chin. "I exposed a program designed to quietly eliminate black agents through psychological manipulation and career. Sabotage, that's not national security. It's institutional rot." A murmur rippled through the room. Hundreds of voices chanted, "We see the garden. Protect the truth. Let her lead." Signs showed screenshots of internal memos, portraits of whistleblowers, and Amara's face superimposed over a cracked FBI seal. Live feeds broadcast across TikTok, Instagram, Twitch. Senator Lila Torres, the only black woman on the panel, shifted her papers and leaned forward. Agent Cole. Were you ever informed of a covert protocol titled Obsidian? Amara hesitated. Yes, just recently. It's through anonymous, encrypted delivery. Torres nodded slowly. Have you verified its contents? Yes, ma'am. Video evidence, personnel rosters, systemic flagging policies. It matches what I lived for. A decade. Torres then turned to the other senators. My office has verified 1/3 of the names in this document. Most are either dead, demoted, or disappeared from records entirely. A stunned silence. Langley cleared his throat. That proves nothing. Torres smiled coldly. No. Then why is your name attached to a 2017 Obsidian correspondence, approving a media blackout initiative against Agent Juno? Langley's face stiffened. He wasn't in the hearing, but his face had been mentioned. His incident had become the origin of a national reckoning. A producer handed him a mic. You're up in 6 minutes. Tell your truth. Shh. Roger nodded. For once. His words might matter. Amara adjusted her mic. I'd like to read into the record a name connected to both the garden and Obsidian. Torres nodded. Proceed. Amara unfolded a sealed page. Nathaniel B. Vaughn, former assistant director. Presumed retired. In fact, still running point ops for Garden Obsidian transitions under a ghost contract with Homeland Intelligence. Gasps. Typing. Reporters fumbled over their keyboards. Torres blinked. Vaughn's dead. No, Amara said. That's what they wanted you to believe. I have a location ping dated 3 weeks ago, tied to encrypted bureau access logs. Chair slammed his gavel. Order. But it was too late. The internet was already on fire. Dozens of reporters faced him, confused. Why was he here? He held no papers, just a photo. The moment he accused Amara, the screenshot. The viral origin of it all. He raised it. I want to apologize not just to Amara Cole, but to every person who's ever had to carry someone else's fear like it was their crime. Some reporters raised eyebrows. Roger's voice didn't shake. Was wrong that day. But what followed was even worse. People tried to use me to control her, to frame the movement for justice as an overreaction. He paused. I burned the contract. I'm not for sale. And I'm not going to be your weapon. A few claps, then more. Then the room erupted. Director Thorne was livid. She named Vaughn. Liv, his aide stammered. She had clearance evidence. We can't stop it now. Thorne closed his eyes. They'll start eating their own. Inside, a worn photograph, her, Juno, and Vaughn, handwritten on the back. You don't know the real story. Come alone. Latitude 38.9374 N. Longitude 77.0261. Rain drizzled gently as Amara stood alone on the stone steps of a closed historical museum. The coordinates burning in her mind. Latitude 38.9374 N. Longitude 77.0261. Nothing in sight but monuments and still shadows. Then click. Her encrypted phone vibrated. Look down. She did. Hidden between the cracks of the marble was a metallic handle, weathered, ancient, blending into the architecture. Amara pried it up, and a cold gust of air hit her face from a stairwell that led underground. The stairs ended in a long hallway lined with deactivated surveillance cameras, dead wires, faded signage. Federal Shadow Archive Level 7 clearance required no guards. No locks. Inside the dark space was a table. On it, a single VHS tape, a voice recorder, and a thick manila file stamped Vaughn Faye's Delta Amara pressed play on the tape recorder. Then she heard it, Vaughn's voice. If you're listening, the Bureau's not broken. Obedient. That's worse. I created Garden to track ideological risks until I saw who was being erased most. You, Cole, were never the enemy. You were the exception we feared. But now, you're the only one left who can stop them. It outlined a final operation set to activate if Garden was exposed. Initiate public doubt flooding via planted social influencers. Use synthetic scandals to discredit Amara. Quietly redirect political donations to anti-reform candidates. Place Amara on the National Destabilization Watch List. In short, erase her publicly, without touching her physically, she whispered to herself. They don't need to kill you to destroy you, just drown you in lies. He met a man in a pressed navy blue suit with no visible agency credentials. You're trending, the man said. They like your redemption arc, but it's risky. Roger raised an eyebrow. Risky for who? For the Bureau? For the narrative? People need a white man to confess just enough to feel closure, not enough to ignite revolution. Roger's lips tightened. So you want me soft? We want you scripted. The man slid a card across the table. One word on it, compliance. Roger pushed it back. I'm not your puppet, host. Agent Cole leaked files suggest you're now under surveillance. Are you afraid? Amara. You can't scare someone who's already been erased once. Gasps. Applause. The audience leaned in. Senator Langley defensive. These leaks are unverifiable, Amara. Then release your internal memos and let the people decide. His aide stood frozen. Sir. It's official. Bond's recording is authentic. And Vault Zero logs show your signature on its shutdown order in 2018. Thorne leaned back. They always said this day might come. A long pause. Send my resignation to the president, effective immediately. But sir, I protected a cancer. She's trying to become the cure. Juno finished decrypting the final list. Bond left behind. It wasn't just agents. It was media figures. Lobbyists. One sitting Supreme Court justice, and one name that made Juno go still. Cole. Amara L. flagged for contingency removal tier. Alpha, she was on the hit list, but not from the past, from a command issued. Just 3 weeks ago, someone was still trying to silence her. She stood alone beneath the statue, her breath visible in the cool summer air. She spoke softly. I won't let them bury me in the same dirt they water their lies with. Her phone buzzed. Text from Juno. It's not over. Phase Delta is active. And your target one. Amara stared into the distance. The statue of Lincoln watched silently. Juno's fingers raced across the keyboard, decrypting the final Garden transmission. Phase Delta. Operational confirmed. Target 1. Cole. Amara. Tier Alpha Elimination Protocol. Activated. His heart stopped. Suddenly crack. A bullet shattered the side window. Juno dropped. Glass sprang around him. Another shot pierced the wall above his head. He grabbed his encrypted drive, shoved it into a hidden cavity under the floor, and crawled toward the escape tunnel behind the bookshelf. Behind him, voices barked. Secure the files. Coles. Contact must not leave breathing, Juno whispered to himself. She warned me. But this is war. Mara stared at the laptop screen, live tracking Juno's distress signal. It blinked once, twice, then flatlined. She clenched her jaw. He gave me time. I have to use it. She pulled out her old field gear black cargo pants, reinforced boots, and a custom jacket stitched with Kevlar layers. Strapped to her wrist was the USB. Key Juno had given her days ago. Only use it when you're ready to. End everything. She was ready to. Massive monitors lit up. One showed Amara's recent movements, the other, a map of DC with red circles. Suspected safe houses, broadcast stations, and federal buildings. Agent Price turned to Director Nolan. Thorne's replacement? She's going to leak it. All of it. Vaughn's, tapes, Gardens, files, everything. Nolan replied coldly, then set the trap. Amara arrived at midnight, kited by a message she wasn't sure was real. Live broadcast access granted. Midnight. Bring the truth. She entered quietly. The studio was dimly lit. A single chair stood center stage. Cameras pointed at it. The teleprompter blinked, began speaking in 3, 2, 1. She ignored it. Instead, she held up the USB and inserted it into the station's emergency broadcast terminal. System override. But before she could hit send, a spotlight flicked on. From the shadows stepped ... Roger. Amara? You followed me? Roger. I was told you'd be here. Amara. By who? Roger hesitates. Someone who said we could rewrite everything. Together. Amara. They're using you again. Roger looked torn. Guilty. I just want to fix what I broke. But you. Can't fix a house built to collapse. Then came the voice from the loudspeaker. Ms. Cole, Mr. Grant, please remain where you are. This location is now federal property. Doors slammed. Armed tactical agents stormed the studio. She grabbed the USB and leaped over the news desk. Gas canisters hissed. Shots fired above her head. She ducked behind a camera rig, kicked it toward the agents, and slipped through a side hallway, Roger following her this way. He shouted. Together they ran into the cold night air, chased by sirens and helicopters above. Roger and Amara sat by a broken furnace. You had a chance to leave all this, she said. Why stay? Roger, because the world I thought I was defending was a lie. And you're the only one telling the truth. Amara stared at him, skeptical but tired. Then her phone buzzed. One new message, unknown number. I have Vaughn's second tape. Proof of who ordered your flagging. Come. Alone? Amara descended the rusted staircase cautiously. She clutched a burner phone in one hand, her Glock in the other. Every sound echoed. A figure waited in the shadows. Hoodie, beard, scars under the eyes. Juno, you're alive. She breathed. He nodded, sliding a cassette tape across the floor. Vaughn recorded this before Phase Delta. It names the person who greenlit your erasure. Amara inserted it into her mini-player. The voice crackled. If this reaches you, the game's already changed. The mole isn't inside the Bureau. It's inside the Senate Judiciary Committee. Name Senator Ellis Morrow, a code name in Garden. Shepard? Amara blinked. Ellis Morrow, the same senator who praised her, defended her on TV, called her a credit to justice. She felt her blood turn to ice. Amara sat across from Senator Morrow during her federal clearance upgrade. He had leaned in, smiling warmly. You're the future of the agency, he'd said. Women like you will keep America honest. She replayed those words in her mind, not as praise as performance. I traced Morrow's staffers' encrypted calls, Juno said. They overlap with Garden's Tier Alpha updates. Amara asked. Why would a senator risk everything to silence one woman? Juno. Because one woman holds the match that burns down every lie he helped build. She stared out the cracked window. I need to expose him, not just leak files. I want his face next to the crimes. Morrow sat alone, sipping whiskey. A confidential report open in front of him. One headline stood out. Amara Cole, seen fleeing. Broadcast station with former agent Roger Grant. He smirked. You can run Agent Cole, but the people trust faces. Mine, not yours. Known. Number 1 text. I have the tapes. Public drop at 9 a.m. Prepare to fall. AC. Roger looked up from a stack of old files when Amara burst in. We do it now, she said. Drop it all. Everything Vaughn gave us. Every list, every protocol. But we tag Morrow's name to every Garden signature. We make him the architect. Roger paused. What if the public doesn't believe it? Amara turned. They won't have to. I'll show them. Juno activated a code called Floodgate. 1,432 local radio stations, 9 social media platforms, 17 news outlets. With dormant Vaughn whistle drop keys, 1 flash drive infected federal server farm. All set to detonate at 9 a.m. Eastern. Amara stood before the camera. Hair tied back, black jacket zipped high, the FBI badge visible at her waist. Roger. Set the countdown. Live in 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 10 seconds. She looked into the lens and said softly, You were told I was the threat. But the real threat was who taught you that. TVs, phones, radios, socials, everywhere. Amara's face appeared. Calm, unapologetic. She spoke for 3 minutes. Then, the drop began. Video footage of Garden's interrogation cells. Signed memos from Senator Morrow ordering Tier Alpha suppression. Lists of whistleblowers disappeared. Evidence that Roger was framed. Proof of FBI data fraud under Delta. Gardenware protocol. America was no longer quiet. Hundreds of protesters flood the Capitol perimeter. Morrow is evacuated. His car is attacked. His chief of staff resigns. 3 federal agents come forward on camera, confirming the tapes. The White House is silent. For now, Amara sat on the floor, exhausted. Roger handed her a glass of water. "I think you just burned DC." "I didn't burn it," she said. "I lit it up so they'd stop pretending it wasn't already on fire." She didn't just speak. She exposed. Senator Ellis Morrow was named as the covert garden architect. Classified files leaked to every screen in the country. FBI, the DOJ, the press, all thrown into chaos. But what burns in public hides what's burning in the shadows. Director Nolan slammed his fist on the table. We lost control of the narrative. The Bureau looks like it kneels to ghosts. One agent spoke carefully, "Sir. A dozen agents have resigned. Bond's tapes are all verified," Nolan hissed. "That's not our concern anymore. Find Cole, Roger, Juno, all of them," another agent asked. "And Morrow?" Nolan stared coldly. "He built Garden. Let him rot with it." Amara and Roger watched the headlines roll in. Senator Morrow in hiding after explosive leaks. FBI whistleblower blows lid on Garden protocol. Who is Amara Cole? The agent who stopped America. Roger turned to her. "You did it. People believe you." But Amara's eyes were fixed on something else. Juno hadn't checked in for 12 hours. Juno typed rapidly. Tracing data flows in the leaked files suddenly. A process activated on its own. Greater than, executing. Shepard _resync _backdoor V. Greater than uploading location. Sending ping to unknown remote SERV. He froze. They planted a virus in the files. Before he could pull the plug, boom. Small explosive rigged inside the tower casing detonated. The screen cracked. Juno was thrown against the wall. Smoke, blood, silence. Amara pushed open the door to the lab. Coughing through thick smoke, charred circuits, blood droplets. No sign of Juno, but his emergency beacon blinked 3 times. Not a signal for danger. Betrayal. She picked up the last screen log. User accessed. Roger Grant. Her heartbeat slowed. No. ... He wouldn't, but a gut-deep memory returned. Words, months ago. Never trust someone who once believed in the garden. Roger stepped into the candlelit ruin. The floor creaked behind him. A voice said, "Why did you access Juno's system?" He froze. Turned to Mara, stood in the shadows, Glock raised. "Roger, he asked me to run a diagnostic. I didn't know the file would activate." Mara, "Why didn't you tell me?" He hesitated. "Because I didn't think you'd believe I didn't betray you." Mara's hand trembled. "I want to believe you, Roger. Then look me in the eyes and tell me what you feel." Mara, "I feel we're being watched." Just then, a sniper danced across Roger's shoulder. Crack! A bullet shattered the stained glass. Then another. Amara shoved Roger down behind a pew. "They're not after you. They want me alive." More red dots. The whole sanctuary was surrounded. Across the internet, a file starts silently spreading. Cole-omega.pack encrypted. Uncrackable. Only one voice can unlock it. Amara's biometric signature. A failsafe Juno programmed days before his disappearance. Director Nolan visits a secure glass cell. Inside, Senator Ellis Morrow, unshaved, smirking. "Nolan, it's over. Your plan failed." Morrow leaned forward, eyes burning. "You still don't get it. She released my virus. That leak activated the chaos code." Nolan's lips parted. "What code?" Morrow whispered. "The one that destroys trust. Not just the FBI. Democracy itself." She ran through the underground freight system once used during the Cold War. Now forgotten, every step echoed the realization. Someone is playing both sides. Roger was either a pawn, something worse. But then her phone buzzed. One new voice. Note, Juno, his voice, raspy. "If you're hearing this, I'm likely gone. The real war, ... isn't against the garden. It's against what comes after. Omega isn't a file. It's a trigger." Amara ran her fingers over the cold steel. Of the old metro tunnel door, dust clung to her face. Blood crusted along her temple from the church raid. She had escaped. Barely, but Juno's last voice note still rang in her ears. Omega isn't a file. It's a trigger. She whispered it aloud now in the darkness. What are you trying to warn me about? She stared at the flash drive now, dangling from her neck. The one Juno labeled Colomega, pack. She inserted it into her encrypted laptop. Screen blacked out. Greater than. Retina scan She leaned in. The screen flashed green dot unlocked. The screen flickered to life. Juno, weeks ago, stood in what looked like a secure lab. Mara, if you're watching this, I'm probably dead. This file isn't evidence, it's prophecy. Vaughn didn't just expose corruption. He uncovered a project called Echo Garden, a psychological algorithm trained on 20 years of behavior data. Its job: predict uprisings, and then trigger them at will. Guess what? You were labeled a prime ignition node. You didn't expose them, they used you. To activate a nationwide panic? She pulled back from the screen. Her hand trembled. Her breath came in gasps. No, no, that's not possible. But it made sense. The organized chaos, the perfect timing, the instant protests. She was the spark. By design, Morrow poured himself a drink. A small team of black-clad private contractors stood in the room Mercs. He faced a monitor where the FBI director appeared via secure video. Morrow, did you really think I didn't know what Vaughn would do? This entire thing was a litmus test. Who follows fear? Who follows truth? And who follows Amara? Director Nolan, you can't control what's next. Morrow, I don't need to. I wrote what's next. Roger stared into his whiskey glass, unable to meet his own reflection. A knock at the door had opened slowly. Amara stepped in, pale, furious. She threw the drive across the table. You knew. Roger looked up, red-eyed. I didn't know it exactly. But Vaughn told me Garden wasn't just a suppression tool.
Amara.
They used me to ignite fear. You should have told me the truth. Roger stood. And would you have stopped? Silence. She couldn't answer. Because he was right. Echo Garden's real effect began. Dozens of online bots and psychological triggers activated. Targeted panic messages blasted to thousands. Mara Cole is a foreign agent trended globally. Black FBI agent behind nationwide disruption went viral. People didn't know what to believe anymore, and that was the plan. Her phone rang. Unknown, she answered. Silence. Then Morrow's voice, cold and confident. You wanted the truth. Now you are the truth. And truth doesn't set people free anymore. It shatters them. Amara stood still. You can either finish what they started or burn it all. He hung up. She saw everything she never wanted to become. A symbol without control. A movement without leadership. A storm without direction. She whispered, If I'm the ignition, then I decide what burns next. Mara sat in front of a server rig. Juno once built. The silence was sharp, except for the hum of encryption cracking. Roger stood behind her, arms folded, guilt heavy in his eyes. Are you sure about this? He asked. Amara's fingers didn't stop moving. I'm not stopping Echo Garden. I'm taking it. She inserted Juno's Omega drive into the console. A digital pulse surged across the system. We leak half. We repurpose the rest. You're going to use the same tech that ruined lives? Amara. I'm going to make it answer to the lives it tried to erase. Director Nolan stared at the main screen as red alert signals filled every monitor. Analyst, sir, someone's hijacked the core protocol of Echo Garden? Nolan, where is it coming from? Analyst, not where, who? He turned the screen. There it was. Cold. Omega active. Amara's biometric ID pulsing in the server logs. Nolan whispered, She's in the system. Echo Garden wasn't just a control tool. It was a network of behavioral trends, facial recognition, predictive models, ... Amara rewired it in real time. Racist policing patterns, rewritten and exposed. Political donor schemes, traced and leaked. Propaganda bots, now redirecting to truth drops every digital wall Garden had built. Amara turned into a window. Screens lit up. Live feeds hijacked. Amara's voice took over national news for 12 seconds. They called me a thief, a liar, a danger. All I stole, ... was your truth. Now it's yours to keep. Boom. The message was brief, defiant, and impossible to trace. Roger peered through the peephole. What the? It was a face they hadn't seen in months. Juno burned marks on his cheek, arm in a sling, but alive. Amara opened the door, stunned. How? Juno coughed. Redundant escape tunnel. They rigged the explosion, not me. He stepped in, dropping a hard drive on the table. You hijacked Garden. Now let's rewrite its route. Amara. This is bigger than them, bigger than us, Juno, which means it's finally big enough to matter. Inside a shadowy mansion, now acting as his war room, Morrow watched it all. His top aide approached. Pale, sir. She reversed your firewall. She's unlocked Phase 7. Morrow didn't flinch. He poured whiskey. I warned them. A black woman with a badge and no leash. He raised his glass. They let her in. Now she'll bring it all down. The new Garden dashboard was now hers. It offered her 5 options. Dismantle Garden, expose every user control, public narrative, lockout all governments, rewrite predictive trust models. Roger, pick wisely. Amara, I'm not picking just one. She clicked. 1. Dismantle Garden. 2. Expose every user. 5. Rewrite predictive trust models. The system flashed. Amara stared. Roger, it means you become the algorithm's baseline. You'll never be private again. She clicked. Yes, whistleblowers get anonymous protection in real time. Corrupt officials' data leak through public. Watchdog sites, law enforcement, facial bias maps shut down. Social media bias detection becomes default. World tilted, and it was Amara's voice that steadied it. The first light of day crept across the quiet streets of Washington, D.C. as Amara Cole placed her badge on the table for the final time. She was no longer an FBI agent, no longer a fugitive, no longer a threat. She had become something more. A symbol of the system she defied, the truth she unveiled, and the millions of voices that had once been silenced. There was peace in her eyes. The war inside her had ended. The world hadn't changed, not completely, but it wasn't blind anymore. She hadn't destroyed the system. She had held up a mirror to it. And when a mirror shows the truth, some things break, and others wake. Amara left the badge behind, opened the door, and stepped into the light. The end.